What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, I want to give a big shout out to the brother Aaron for showing love once again to Too Raw for TV with the donation via the PayPal. And he asked me a question in a comment, not a comment, excuse me, in a donation and a note. He asked me who was more influential, Pete Maravich or Allen Iverson. Now, of course, Pete Maravich was extremely influential. He was a player who popularized uh, in the 1970s dribbling skills and ball handling skills that had not previously been displayed in the relatively conservative NBA. You know, it was the ABA, which had started in 1967, that was more geared toward perimeter play. It was more guard dominated, a more street ball style, if you want to say, you want to put it out there like that. And as a consequence of that, the NBA had to try to make some changes to modernize its product because there was a ratings decline starting in the 1970s a little bit. And to keep up with the times, the NBA opened the game up a little bit. That's why you started seeing, if you look back at highlights, you started seeing Wilt Chamberlain dunking the ball more, right? You know why that was? You know why you started seeing guys dunking more in the 70s? Because they loosened up the defensive rules. Guys used to be able to double hand check. Centers literally could double hand check with both. Yeah. So it was hard for centers to get separation from the defender to go to the hoop, unless you were extremely athletic. And it took a lot of energy to get open to go for dunks. That's why, more or less, unless it was a fast break situation, players were forced to develop offensive moves. But I digress a little bit talking about that. Pete Maravich was an absolutely sensational college star, from LSU. Averaged 44 points a game in his collegiate career. Did without the three-point shot. It's been proven that if there was a three-point shot, he would have averaged something around 57 points a night. Okay. So he brought a level of playmaking, creativity, ball handling, style that we had not seen before. And he was very, very influential to the game. Although I do want to bring up Earl the Pearl Monroe, because I don't think he gets brought up enough too, because he actually came to the league before Pete Maravich. So both those guys were very influential. To me, I got to give a nod to Iverson, because not just because I think AI was more consistent as an NBA player. Pete was great, but sometimes he could be inconsistent. But we're not talking about how great each one of these guys are. We're talking about who was more influential. Well, to me, AI was more influential from a cultural standpoint and on-court standpoint. AI emphasized the crossover, dribble. And while Tim Hardaway may have had the best crossover overall. It wasn't the flashiest one, but the most effective one. AI was the one that popularized the crossover. Then you start seeing guys, you start seeing wannabe players putting emphasis on their crossover. Their crossover dribble all of a sudden. You see, everybody was starting to imitate Allen Iverson. Back then, I remember in the late '90s, everybody wanted to be either AI or Kobe, or even though Mike had just retired, people still was emulating Jordan in the fadeaway, Karl Malone. Um, a little bit after that, Tracy McGrady. People didn't have Vince Carter's athletic ability, so that's not something that anybody really aspired to do. But I think AI was the most attainable, and that's because look, he was 5'11" and a half. There are a lot more people walking around 5'11", 5'10" than there are 6'6", or Maravich 6'5", or Shaq 7 feet tall. You understand what I'm saying? So just from a statistical standpoint, Iverson was just a guy that people can relate to. Sort of like with Steph Curry. Steph is 6'3". He's still taller than average, but he looks like a guy that's close to average height. Iverson was average height and was dominating in the NBA. And he also, the tattoos, with the cornrows, with the body armor that he wore, almost like he was going to war. The baggy shorts. You start seeing everybody doing that. You start seeing people, and you start seeing more arenas incorporating hip hop music in the festivities or in the programs of their games. You know what I'm saying? You started seeing more of that, and a lot of that was the influence of Allen Iverson, and not just Allen Iverson, because it was also a bunch of other players at that same time were coming of age. Kevin Garnett, uh, kind of could say Shaq, but Shaq had been around since '92, but Shaq was really starting to come to his own in the late '90s. So it wasn't just AI, but AI was the most authentic face of it. You know what I'm saying? And for those reasons, I just think that AI, in my opinion, now people could disagree with me, but I think outside of Michael Jordan, AI was the second most culturally significant player we've ever had. And I've always thought it was screwed up how the NBA never gave him the proper send off, the proper send off that he deserved um, back in 2010. He should have been able to retire in the NBA, you know. But that's just my take on it. I think that Pete Maravich, if I had to think about it, as far as influential player, he's top three, maybe top three, top four, depending upon how you look at Steph Curry. I mean, that's just how I would look at it. But Pete Maravich is definitely up there. But anyway, tell me what you guys think.